With Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's Teal Mask DLC being released, a lot of Pokemon ended up coming back, along with some new ones. Even better, many of these Pokemon got cool new buffs, greatly increasing their potential and viability. So I decided to join a draft league that is ran by my good brothers, PokeMD and ShuckleKing. A Pokemon Draft League is where you are given a specific amount of points to draft a roster of 10 to 12 Pokemon and compete against other participants for a specific amount of weeks. You then enter playoffs and then the best shall become the champion. I was lucky enough to be the 4th pick, meaning that I could actually get some of the most powerful Pokemon round 1. That represents the epitome of peak performance and domination. So I decided to take Patpy. With game-ending moves like Mud Slap and Defense Curl, it basically means that, okay, the gig's up, I took Great Tusk. The best Rapid Spinner in the game. A Pokemon that can be a defensive backbone, a destructive wall breaker, and an unstoppable late-game cleaner. There is hardly anything this Pokemon can't do. If we're talking specifically about roll compression, this is arguably the Pokemon that offers it the most. All of which is reinforced with moves like Ice Spinner for flying types, Knockoff for psychic and ghosts, as well as of course its stabs hitting damn near over half the entire game, with Stealth Rock being the icing on the cake. In closing, this Pokemon epitomizes roll compression and is the one to build an entire team around. Now, since we're in the DLC era, we gotta look for some new Pokemon. A Pokemon that can contribute and also be shamelessly spammed for thumbnails. So when it got back to me, I was very much surprised because my next pick is Empoleon, returning starter from the Sinnoh region, which got some really new cool toys to play with. Its signature ability, Defiant, has now been replaced with Competitive, meaning that for every stat drop, its special attack will rise by 2 stages, which is amazing considering that's what its predominant stat is. Furthermore, it is a great defensive typing with only 3 weaknesses and pairs up really well with Great Tusk, especially when you also consider it being able to run Stealth Rocks as well. The fun new toys also don't end here either, as it now also gets Roost, which greatly helps its longevity, along with Flip Turn, which greatly helps me for acquiring momentum and getting in my Great Tusk. This is a Pokemon that greatly shines in draft format, and I'm very much excited to using it for the first time. At this stage, I realized that I should probably get some speed. An amazing revenge killer that has great potential as a late game cleaner. So I decided to take Weavile, the same Pokemon that you need 5 of to do any damage. Except now, it gets knockoff. This single addition is gonna be what makes Weavile rise back in the ranks as a top tier threat, just like it did in Generation 6. Its base 125 speed allows for it to almost outspeed the entire metagame. When you combine that with having 2 of the best offensive typings combined as one, it's very much something you gotta take very seriously. With this, I can run multiple items such as Life Orb and Choice Band to spam knockoff with, or even heavy duty boot sword stats, which is great when you add that with it having a pretty nice priority in Ice Shard to pick off fast dragons. Add that with Low Kick to take down bulky steels, and you got a Pokemon that is very much ready to beat all the washed allegations. Things are looking great so far, but I also realized that I need a strong Terra Captain. In this league, it is only the low tier Pokemon that can terrestrialize into a total of 3 types, which you need to have 15 points for in total, that coincides with the Pokemon's price. So I decided to be the early bird and snag my first Terra Captain, Kilowattrel. This Terra Captain was once the kill leader in the last season of the Pokemon Premier League. After seeing how well Mountay used it, I realized that there's hardly a better choice. I decided to follow his footsteps and give it Terra Flying, Water, and Ground. Flying is really good in the sense that it gives the Pokemon the extra firepower that it needs. Water is amazing for taking down both rock and ground types with the addition of fire as an extra benefit. Not to mention that with Volt Absorb, I'll still stay immune to electric type attacks and only have 1 weakness in grass, which ultimately won't matter since I'll have the Flying Stab to take my opponent down. Lastly, Ground is an amazing type for taking down bulky steels and electric types. After everything that I saw so far, I know for a fact that this Pokemon won't do anything by halves, even though it's beheaded in the dock for whatever reason. From here, I realized that there are certain holds that need to start getting patched. More specifically, I need a solid answer for fighting spam and a defensive backbone that can put a hard stop to any setup sweeps. Enter Skeledirge. With its base 104 HP, it can easily be EV to take either physical or special hits depending on the matchup. And when you combine that with a move that constantly boosts its special attack in Torch Song, it very much opens up the door for it to gain offensive progress against my opposition. Of course, it doesn't end here either, as with the combination of Unaware and Will-O-Wisp, it very much plays its role in being able to reliably take on a lot of offensive threats in this metagame. Now that we're more than halfway through, it's clear to me that I need to balance out my speed tiers more, because other than my Kilowattrel and Weavile, I don't exactly have the fastest team. That, and more than anything, I need a solid ground resist. Well, it's a good thing that this Pokemon came back, because my next pick is Shaymin, which in my opinion is an absolute steal for just 9 points. It has a stat distribution of 100 onto every single stat, meaning that it is bulky, has decent speed, and can also hit pretty hard considering its signature move. Seed Flare is a base 120 special grass type move that has a 40% chance of lowering my opponent's special attack by 2 stages. It also has great coverage in being able to smack steel types with Earth Power and dragon types with Dazzling Gleam. It's also not lacking in the recovery department as it gets access to both Synthesis and Leech Seed, thus greatly helping its longevity. So with this pick, I realized a few things. Other than Great Tusk, I don't exactly have any other reliable breakers. That, and I don't have any poison types to neutralize toxic spikes. So I decided to put 2 things into one, and what do I get? Dragology. Now this is a Pokemon I wanted to use for a long time now. There is not a single Pokemon that wants to eat a neutral hit adaptability boosted Draco Medium. For the fairies, all it takes is just one Sludge Bomb for them to be pushing up daisies. So naturally, you'd think that a bulky steel is the answer. Well, other than me being able to get good damage off with Focus Blast, it once again gets Flip Turn, meaning that I have a solid Wall Breaker and an amazing Momentum Instigator. Now that we got a dragon, it's time that we snag ourselves a fairy. A few options presented itself, but there were no options greater than Gardevoir. This Pokemon fulfills the role of granting me another solid breaker, which is especially helped by the fact that it can also be a solid choice Scarf. But that's just one aspect of it. Its typing grants me a 4 times resistance to fighting type attacks, and all the coverage needed to make them go down no problem. And when you add that with something like Trace, I can very much acquire both intel on my opponent and even use their own abilities against them, which especially helps when you also consider it being able to use moves like Will-O-Wisp to cripple physical attackers. Add that with its superior coverage like Aura Sphere for steel types to even Energy Ball for bulky waters, and you got yourself a Pokemon that just fits in like a glove for the Bullet Punch Club. With these 2 Pokemon, I figured that my team finally has some solid breakers to utilize. But I also noticed that other than Great Tusk and Weavile, I don't really have any physical hitter. Even worse, my team looks very weak to Ghost Spam. I also noticed that I had a lot of points to spare with these recent picks. So I chose to go all in and take the one Pokemon that nobody ever wants to face, Teddiursa Luna. This Pokemon for whatever reason was undrafted until round 9. And let me tell you just now just how much of a massive steal it is. With a monstrous base 140 attack and 130 HP, this Pokemon absolutely destroys anything that can take it down with one hit, with Guts literally boosting its attack if it gets burned. Meaning that all these ghost types that can't touch this bear, yeah, they better get ready to say their final goodbyes. And on weeks where I don't want to run Guts, I can just run Bulletproof. Add that with its unstoppable coverage and even access to moves like Swords Dance and Bulk Up, we literally have the premier wall breaker for the Bullet Punch Club. As we're reaching the end, I realized that it's time to get another Terra Captain. The points I had were limited. However, with the option of Terastallization, this Pokemon can definitely put in the work, I feel. Enter Cryogonal, with the Terra types of Ice, Steel, and Electric. Now, this is a Pokemon meant to add further defensive backbone with these typings because with Terra Steel and Levitate, I only have one weakness. And with Terra Electric, I got 0. meaning that I can very much use this for hyper-specific matchups to deal with potential threats that would otherwise be very difficult to take down. It's also my second hazard remover. Obviously, I don't expect this Pokemon to end games by itself anytime soon. However, I do see this acting as a great support Pokemon to catch my opponents off guard. With this, I only have 1 point left, and another Pokemon to potentially terrestrialize. So I decided to get my money's worth with my final pick, with the Terra types being Rock, Grass, and Fairy. All I'ma say is, do not sleep on this Pokemon. It may only have a base 100 attack, but it also happens to know Head Smash and Wood Hammer. It also happens to have an ability that just so happens to nullify the recoil, meaning that its stock as an offensive threat has definitely risen. Add that with a move like Stealth Rock, we got ourselves a solid final Pokemon for its value. So yeah, that is the team we're going to be using for this season of the Shuckle Premier League. What do you think? Feel free to let me know in the comment section down below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe as I'm on my way to 10,000 subscribers by the end of this year. I am genuinely excited to compete in this league with a roster full of amazing content creators and good brothers of mine. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next Sunday with my first match. Wish!